Hi, I'm Evelyn,
And I'm Robert.
and this is Talking About It.
So this week we are talking about the chapter Voice of Saruman.
Yes.
So do you remember what your predictions were and what were they?
So I did not remember, but I looked them up, and I do remember now. So I went pretty hard on this chapter predicting about Saruman. So my first prediction was that we were going to see the battle from his point of view.
That didn't happen.
My second prediction, which we'll talk about at the end, about whether or not if I can get a half point. We would see a detailed thing about the water coming into Isengard.
Okay.
And then the third prediction was that Saruman would have an interaction with Wormtongue. And again, we'll talk about it
Okay.
and see if I can get a half a point.
I'm already going to vote no.
Cool. All right. Anything before we get into this chapter? I want to dive right in.
I think that's dive right in. So one of the things I want to start with, though, is here in this chapter, this is kind of where some critics talk about how his description, it comes more alive in this chapter than others.
I fully agree.
Okay, so I'm going to start with just the first paragraph, in case you guys don't have your books in front of you. They passed through the ruined tunnel and stood upon a heap of stones, gazing at the dark rock of Orthnic and its many windows, a menace still in the desolation that lay all around it. The waters had now nearly all subsided. Here and there, gloomy pools remained covered with scum and wreckage, but most of the wide circle was bare again, a wilderness of slime and tumbled rock, pitted with blackened holes and dotted with posts and pillars, leaned drunkenly this way and that.
Yeah, I did like that opening paragraph a lot.
And it also is very much opposite of the woods and the land around the place too. So it's a stark contrast
Yes.
to everything that lays around it.
Right.
I like the fact that we briefly breeze over the fact that Gandalf had discussion with Treebeard and made plans.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the only hint of anything we get.
I mean, from the way that this has been going, I'll probably turn that into a prediction, is that we'll hear from Gandalf, like, what those plans are. Because, thankfully, Tolkien is, I guess, sparing us from how long Treebeard can talk.
Well, see, but that's why I think it's funny last time they had a quick discussion.
Yeah.
So this might have been a quick discussion as well.
Right, yeah.
And as we move on, Gandalf states that he needs to talk with Saruman before they go on.
Right.
So this is interesting. So how is this going to happen?
Yeah.
And then, of course, they're like some of the people want to see what Saruman can look like, but
Right.
Gandalf says Saruman can look like me in your eyes if it suited him.
Mm-hmm.
You need to beware of his voice.
Yes.
Now, in a letter to F.J. Ackerman, Tolkien had wrote that his voice isn't hypnotic, it's persuasive. It's like a perfect charisma in D&D terms. People do not fall into a trance, but agree with his arguments while fully awake. Saruman corrupts the reasoning powers of a person.
Okay.
So I think that's interesting. So he's not putting you under a spell as far as a real spell goes.
Right. He just has maxed out charisma.
Yes.
Okay. That makes more sense, because I was definitely thinking it was some sort of, like, spell.
And the door to the tower faces east. Now, when it was originally built, the reason why it faced east is that's the way of the sunrise.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but now it faces Mordor instead. Even the shuttered window with the balcony on it faces the same way, but that shuttered window has bars in it.
Yeah.
Which, already gives you a feel that this is probably going to be somebody's prison along the line.
Yeah, that's true. Didn't think about that.
Yeah. So what do you think about the beginning?
So the beginning, when they first said that they were going to talk to Saruman, I was expecting a wizard beatdown, and I was almost disappointed that we didn't get that. I just thought it would be, just really fun to see, Gandalf kick his ass. But, what happened was still interesting, too. Don't get me wrong.
Well, Gandalf doesn't work that way.
That's true. There's, when we get there, the way that Gandalf does respond, I really, really like.
And Gandalf, so there's these stairs that go up to the front door.
Right.
And so Gandalf says he'll go up the stairs himself because he knows his peril. But then the king says, well, I'm old and I don't fear any peril. And
then Gimli's like, I just want to see what this dude looks like.
Well, but then Eomer and Aragorn go with them as well because
they need to be there.
They need to be there, and Gimli speaks up for himself, and Legolas says,
I'm going with Gimli.
Yeah. What?
Or Gimli's more volunteering him. It's just nah, Legolas is going with me, and Legolas is like,
right. And if you think about this is huge.
Mm-hmm.
They're starting to speak for each other.
Yes.
It's not like Legolas, would you like to come with me? It's Legolas and I will go up there too.
Right. Which I think is hilarious because I forget which part of the chapter they're talking to Treebeard, and Legolas is kind of fangirling over the forest that he comes from, and he's like, and he's like, yeah, a friend of mine wants to come too, and he's like, you and your elf friend are welcome. He's like, actually, it's this angry little dwarf down here, and Treebeard's like, I'm sorry, what?
No axe-carrying dwarf is coming in here.
Yeah, and then Legolas is just like, oh, but he got 42 kills.
Well, he says the axe is for cleaving heads,
not trees. And he got 42 kills. I love how he, even numbered it. He's like, he got 42 kills. No big deal.
Yep.
And Treebeard's like, this is weird, but fine.
and then what does Pippin want to do?
Pippin just was like, nah.
I want to go back to the guard room.
Yeah, I want to go back to the guard room and eat something. And he and Mary, I love their little interaction where they kind of sit on the steps and just we feel unimportant and unwanted. And it's just dude, you decided to stay. So dramatic.
But then I don't know why this caught me this way this time reading it.
Mm-hmm.
But for Gandalf to go, Saruman, reminded me of Rapunzel.
It does. I did have to read that twice because the first time I did read it Rapunzel, I'm like, no, that's not how it's intended to be read. So I did accidentally read it the first time. I wasn't going to admit that, but yeah.
Yeah, and Wormtongue answers it first.
Yeah.
Gandalf tells him to go get his master.
Right.
So Saruman shows up, and his voice is a delight to hear and seemed wise and reasonable to many of those that were up there with Gandalf.
Yes. Yeah. A lot of the guards ended up coming too, or knights or whatever. They all ended up going up there. It was just one big party. And they definitely, you can tell it's the weaker-willed men, or not necessarily weaker-willed men, not the people that have their own proficiency in insight, I guess, if we're using D&D terms again.
Right.
That they're very easily taken in with what Saruman says.
Yeah, and when they do see him, what they see is an old man swathed in a great cloak, the color of which was not easy to tell, for it changed if they moved their eyes or if they stirred. His face was long with a high forehead. He had deep, darkening eyes, hard to fathom. Thought the look that he now bore was grave and benevolent, and a little weary. His hair and beard were white, but strains of black still showed about his lips and ears. And Gimli's like, yep, like, yet unlike.
Yeah. And I really, really like this imagery because, I mean, Tolkien, he's never been known to shy away from like advertently in your face symbolism and like having like the black within the white beard, and then the robes that tend to change color very overtly, like he's corrupted kind of deal. But it worked. It wasn't a like, oh my god, dude, too much. It was like this is good. This is good stuff right here.
Right. And then Saruman is trying to sweet talk the king.
Yeah.
And as you said earlier, the writers, many of the writers, approved of Saruman's words.
Right.
Like, yeah, why don't we do that?
Yeah, and I like how Gandalf stays quiet here, and I really thought about it because I was like, why aren't you saying anything? But then it really hit me. It's like, and let me know if I'm wrong, but to me it felt like Gandalf was trying to get him to, I guess, like turn him down on his own, like have him like break through the charisma on his own rather than like trying to break it to kind of like, I guess, prove to the king that he is capable of breaking through these not necessarily, well, I was thinking spells at the time, but breaking through these tricks himself. I felt it was almost like for the king's benefit that is like he's able to break through because he was controlled by Wormtongue for so long.
Right. Yeah, and I think at one time it even describes the same feeling that the men have as to the way Wormtongue, had sway over the king. And so then Eomir calls him an old liar with honey on his forked tongue.
I loved that so much. Eomir, he was just immediately like, we're not doing this today. He wasn't caught in at all. He didn't have to fight for 1 second. He's just like, we gonna take this from this dude?
Right. And Saruman says, meddle not in politics you do not understand.
Right.
Okay. And so this is what reminds me of, so during the 60s, during the counterculture, this book played a huge role for some of those groups.
You talked about that before, yeah.
And this little part here is kind of part of it. So one of the things said is, to every man his part, valor in arms is yours, and you win high honor thereby. Slay whom your lord names as enemies, and be content. Meddle not in policies which you do not understand. So those are Solomon's words.
That really gives me like Vietnam vibes. Is that where it's going?
Yeah. It's the basically the college age young adults who saw this as the current United States government.
Yes. Yeah.
So that I found that interesting to add in here.
That's really interesting. Yeah.
But we also get a really good sense here of humans and elves and dwarves all coming together.
Yeah.
And agreeing on something. And it's like the walls of racism is starting to fall.
Yeah, for sure.
And that was also part of the counterculture's goals. Is to defeat this racism and classism within the United States at that time.
Okay.
And but Saruman is sitting there trying to reason that his actions were no more different than what the king's ancestors had done. So that's interesting too. It's like You think what I do is bad. What about your ancestors?
Yeah, that's a
You
head
know,
scratcher.
yeah, and he's trying, but his ancestors never created orcs.
Yeah.
His ancestors never, attacked everybody just because everybody wasn't him.
Yeah, that's true.
So, and they beg him for peace. Will you have peace with us?
Mm-hmm.
He says, we will have peace when you and your works have perished, and that of your dark lord.
Yes. Yeah. Saruman really tries to be like, nah, we can be bros. We can talk. We can, you should definitely have me as counsel. Like, my friendship's better than, not having it. And everyone's just like, what? And again, had to like wait on Theoden to like really talk about like, is that like, will he say no? Because like his guards, they were definitely taken in. They're like, yeah, this makes perfect sense.
Right. And again, here's a part of, some of that area that the counterculture was talking about against the war is, even if your war was just, and it's not, killing children is wrong.
Yeah.
And so that was a huge cry of that anti-Vietnam movement
Yeah, for sure.
too.
Yeah, that definitely goes with that whole counterculture during that time.
Yeah. But I love the king's response too. When you hang and you are food for your own crows, then I'll have peace with you. So,
No chill. None.
yeah.
It's beautiful. I love it.
And no longer willing to accept little things.
Mm-hmm.
That's also part of the counterculture and why they embrace this so much. I mean, some of these young adults were wearing pins that said "Frodo lives,"
Mm-hmm.
and Led Zeppelin practically had a whole album dedicated to the book. I think that was okay.
Oh.
So again, going back to him trying to Saruman trying to influence the party,
Yes.
and so he realized that he needs maybe to focus on one certain thing,
Mm-hmm.
especially after he lost his cool.
Yeah.
And the king's people now see
Who he really
who
is.
he really is.
Yeah.
So he decides to focus in on Gandalf and tries to speak with persuasion.
Yes. And I mean, Gandalf just freaking starts laughing.
Yeah.
In his face.
Okay, so all right. So here you are. You're going to get a little bit of that pastor right now.
Oh, Lord.
Okay, 2 words. Gandalf laughed. Everything after that, it starts to turn around.
Okay.
Okay, Gandalf laughing at Saruman
Mm-hmm.
is like, hold on, folks. Jesus wept.
Oh my God. Okay.
And that verse comes out of the Bible about Lazarus.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when he raises Lazarus from the dead. And that's when the folks around Jesus can see his true power.
Right.
And so that's kind of where we're at with Gandalf here. Yeah.
I would say this is a stretch.
Yeah, he survived. He survived that battle.
Uh-huh.
But everybody here sees this.
Yeah, that's
They
true.
heard about the battle, but now they see Gandalf laughing in his face without any fear.
I'm still saying it's a stretch, but I kind of get where you're coming from. Maybe.
But then I think Gandalf is like, now, Saruman, you should have been a king's jester.
Mm-hmm. He reads him for Phil.
You would not comprehend me as far as I understand you. I
Yeah.
understand you too well.
Right. It was just so funny to me. Just Gandalf is like, no, 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 no. No, sweetie, no. Not gonna happen.
Right. And here Saruman lets his facade slip too.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody now sees him for what he is.
Yes.
And Gandalf continues to say, you're free to go where you wish. You just need to hand over the keys of the tower and your staff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he's like, no.
Right.
And also Saruman can only see that if Gandalf gains the same type of power Saruman has,
Mm-hmm.
that he will eventually become just like Gandalf will become just like Saruman. That's what
Okay.
Saruman sees. That's what Saruman believes.
Okay.
And so he can only relate. He can't relate to anything else but trying to defend himself at this point. He's not saying, he's no longer saying, I did this for the good of the world, or I did this because I was raising an army to fight the real evil. He's just now trying to save face and save his own neck.
Yeah.
So what do you think about this chapter up to this point?
So it was definitely an easier read so far. No, but for realsies, I enjoyed it. Even though it wasn't action packed, it was still very interesting because it did feel like almost a battle with words.
Right.
Is how it felt. I felt like it was written as a battle. And I really liked that.
Right. And Saruman also says, I know what you want. You want to possess the power of all the wizards and you want to rule the 7 kingdoms. Mm-hmm. Because, again, all he sees
is himself.
Himself and his own desires.
Right. And I think the biggest difference is that Gandalf, he's admitted since the beginning, he's like, you know what? I don't want to taste for power because I'm afraid I will like it too much.
Right, yeah. I don't want to touch that ring.
Yeah, he's very much aware that it's like, I can be corrupted and I don't feel like it.
Right.
I just want to party with my hobbits. Like, I don't care about, like, the rest of the world or, well, he does. That's not the right way to say it. I don't care about, like, ruling the world or having power and influence. I mean, that's why he hangs out with the hobbits in the first place, is because they don't know who he really is. He's able to just kind of be his, like, surfer dude self with them and just, like, bum it in a hammock versus, like, everyone else is just like, Gandalf, you must help us. He's like, ugh, fine. Versus the hobbits are like, you're a no good bum. And he's like, haha, success. My true calling.
So since I talked earlier about the counterculture, and since you brought him on to hang out with the hobbits, the counterculture kind of pointed at the hobbits and Gandalf's love for pipe weed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, they thought that if everybody just smoked a bowl of pipe weed, everybody would just be fine. Along. You can't see me doing quotes around the word we.
I know. You keep forgetting this is an audio format.
I know, but now I told them.
That's true.
So they can visualize it.
To which you also did a large hand gesture. Imagine the SpongeBob imagination meme. That's what he just did.
I always think of the old magician. Can't remember his name now, but he would always go, do that hand gesture. Go, it's just an illusion. But Saruman tries to walk away.
Yeah.
And Gandalf says, "No, I'm not done with you yet. Come back."
I like Saruman's like, all right, peace. Just tried to destroy the world a little bit, cause some evil, upset a few people, but I promise I'm a good boy. I'm just gonna leave and walk away.
Right.
And Gandalf's like, nah. Nah.
I mean, it practically, when he calls his name, it practically drags him back to the balcony.
Yes.
And then Gandalf is, I am Gandalf the White. Saruman has no color now.
Mm-hmm.
And you are cast from the order, and you have lost your power.
Mm-hmm.
And then Gandalf breaks his staff, Saruman's staff,
Yes.
just by raising his hand.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, yeah, he fought the Balrog.
Yeah.
You know, and he's been riding Shadowfax nonstop around the world, getting everybody ready.
Yeah.
But for him to just reach out into the air and think about snapping this staff of power. I mean, the staff of power that belonged to the leader of the order.
Right.
Which you can imagine is probably also the most powerful staff. Just reaching out into the air and just does a hand gesture like he's just snapped something in half.
See, I kind of read it as Gandalf, he has become, like, the way that I've kind of been reading Gandalf throughout this entire book has been, he's meant to be the leader, but he's been very reluctant in that role. He has one of the rings. He has the power of the sun. He's Sailor Moon. He doesn't want to be in charge, but he is. And now that he has like accepted his fate, kind of like
I am the power.
Yeah, exactly. Like he finally like accepts his magic girl fate, and he is the anime antagonist, and he's finally at that part where he does accept all of that and is now asserting his power. He's that reluctant leader who is now, I gotta do this. I have to do this. I don't want to do this, and yet here we go. And I think it's very telling of his power, where he does have power for sure. He's just very reluctant to actually use it because he doesn't want to be in charge. And now he's accepting that fate and he is doing it, is kind of the vibe I'm getting from this, where it's like, this is his first time showing Saruman. He's just like, no, I am more powerful than you. I've just been reluctant to show it.
Yeah.
And it's like, and it's kind of like those words of power. Like everything he says is power, where he's just like, you're no longer part of our council. Your power is stripped. And it's like him just stating those words made it so.
Right. And then, so we have this great confrontation. A war of words, and then Gandalf takes away his power and declares that he is now the White Wizard. And then after Saruman crawls away, Gandalf says, well, that's done.
Yeah.
Well, that's done. Now I need to go find Treebeard and tell him how things have gone.
Yeah.
And Mary is like, well, certainly he should have known that this was going to come out this way.
Yeah. And Gandalf's like, yeah, I probably figured, but might as well let him know it happened.
Yeah. Well, and also, Gandalf's like, I had to try.
Yeah.
I had to try.
Right. And then, like, afterwards, he's like, all right, Saruman cannot leave. Treebeard, can you flood this place again so he can't?
Right.
To which, can he not swim? That part was...
No. There are probably tunnels there are probably tunnels under the tower.
The tunnels. Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
I was really confused. I'm like, can you just like
Well,
swim?
can you swim?
Yeah.
Could you swim a mile if you needed to?
Okay, yes, but that's different. That's because you made sure my brother, like Alex and I, could as we were little.
Right.
That is different. That's different.
Yeah.
We were trained by a Coast Guard swimmer. There's a difference.
And then suddenly a shiny thing comes hurtling down from above. And we know from reading that Wormtongue threw it.
Yeah.
And
Like, we hear this shout of, like, pain. And so I thought he was, like, having a heart attack or something. And then we see this thing is thrown. And, like, and Gandalf's like, yeah, Wormtail must have. Wormtail, god darn it. I knew I was going to make that mistake. Wormtongue threw it. And Gandalf is just like, that's what I thought he probably threw with that much anguish. And I'm just like, maybe he did have a heart attack seeing it being thrown.
well, like how, like, wow, his throw was really off the mark.
Yeah.
And Gandalf's like, well, he probably didn't know if he wanted to throw it at me or Saruman. So that's what he meant. So,
yeah.
and then Gimli is like, maybe we should get away at least a stone's throw from the tower.
Yeah. That was I like that little like line.
And Saruman now lives in the terror of the shadow of Mordor because he no longer has any power.
Right.
In his mind, he was doing this so he could overthrow.
Right. In his mind, he definitely he tricked himself. He used charisma on himself. Like, nah, this is fine. I can do this. Whatever.
Yep.
And I mean, that's what people do that are making bad decisions. They convince themselves they are doing the right thing.
Correct. And so then Treebeard and other Ents meet with the riders. Gandalf introduces Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where that little conversation
starts. With Treebeard is. Okay. Which, again, just so funny.
And Legolas defending Gimli.
Yeah.
So it was kind of, so at the beginning, it's great bookends. In the beginning.
It is.
Gimli is saying, no, Legolas and I.
Right.
Go up there. Now Legolas is saying, hey, he's a good dude.
Yeah, he's just like, yeah, we both really want to come check out the forest.
I mean, he doesn't have any evil. He killed 42 of those guys.
Yeah.
Come on, dude.
He's not a tree killer. He's an orc killer. Get with it.
And then, you know what makes me happy when we read a chapter, right?
Oh, Lord. I knew this was coming, and yet I still forgot.
So, we have a song.
We do have a song.
But this is a new song.
Okay, what do you mean by new song? Do you mean like it's a new song that we're seeing it for the first time? Because, I mean, duh. Or do you mean like someone's creating the song brand new?
Somebody's creating a brand new song. Because Treant is adding the hobbits to the Song of Life.
Okay.
And so and it's also a short verse for short people.
That's funny.
Okay?
That is funny.
So, Ents the earthbound, old as mountains, the wide walkers, water drinking, and hungry as hunters, the hobbit children, the laughing folk, the little people.
It is short and sweet, and I really like it.
Because it's short and sweet.
That too. It's perfect for the hobbits, and it's perfect for me, the reader.
And then Treebeard has a watchwood set up around so they can keep an eye on what happens and if there's any comings and goings.
Right.
Now, getting into some notes. So C.S. Lewis wanted more and a better conversation between Saruman and Gandalf. He thought it was lacking and lackluster. He thought there should have been more, theology or philosophy behind his words and not just,
So the stuff that makes me go, oh no, when I read.
Yeah, but wanted more there than just a simple, me good, you bad.
Okay.
Okay? And while we're talking about C.S. Lewis's opinions, in a letter, Tolkien states that C.S. Lewis did not like the hobbits, and especially Merry and Pippin most of all.
Really?
Yeah. He just didn't like the characters that were built.
I'm almost surprised. I feel like he would vibe with them.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you think about it,
I mean, I know Treebeard is based off of him. So maybe they're a little too flighty and silly and young for him.
right. But, I was going to bring that up, but now that you say that, it's like, okay, do you think it was Tolkien's little jab back at his friend, C.S. Lewis? I know you don't like the hobbits, so I'm going to create this creature after you, and you walk around with the hobbits on your shoulders. I mean, I can imagine, that little friendly banter going around. So
yeah, I can see that, honestly.
So, and so we start, boiling down to simmer, and as I said, the watchwood will be called. Not a squirrel will go in there, but I shall know of it. Mm-hmm. Leave it to the ants.
Yeah.
And here he goes again. Here Treebeard goes again with some of those, perfect things.
Mm-hmm.
Until 7 times the years in which he tormented us past, we shall not tire of watching him. And remember, 7's an important number.
Yeah.
And so to invoke that number 7 again is
it's a very sacred number.
Yeah. And then that's the end of the chapter.
That's the end of the chapter, yeah.
Well, you got anything else you want to talk about?
No, I think we covered it pretty well. I was definitely much more into this chapter than the last one.
So our next chapter is the Palantir.
Okay.
Predictions.
Lord, the Palantir. I know I made this prediction back with Flotsam and Jetsam, but can I make it again that this time we see Sam? It's now, this specific chapter is going to be Frodo and Sam.
Okay.
Can I make it like just this specific one? I do think, not just like, oh, we'll finally see Sam and Frodo. It's like, I feel like we've been focusing on these other characters a lot, and I feel like this is a good natural kind of like a good natural end of sequences. So now like kind of moving back to Sam and Frodo would work right now.
Okay.
In the way the story is.
Okay, so that's 1.
Yeah. Palantir. That sounds like a nautical term to me. I know the other ones didn't at all, but this one does sound like a nautical term to me.
Okay.
Oh Lord, you're laughing. Can I just predict that's a nautical term? Is that too vague?
Okay, you can do that.
Okay, so I'm totally wrong. Cool. By the way you said that and the look you gave me, I know I'm wrong. All right. Third prediction. I really don't know what else is gonna happen. Can I make the prediction that if the Palantir is not a nautical term, can it be like a plant or herb?
Can it be a plant or an herb?
If it's not a nautical term, then I predict it's a plant or herb. Can I do that?
Sure.
Okay, cool.
You can do that.
So it's not that either. Cool. I guess that's my prediction.
You can predict more than 3 things.
Okay, dance battle. Go. There's definitely going to be a Guardians of the Galaxy style dance battle. No, I know. I mean,
and Pippin is going to take on the role of Baby Groot.
Absolutely.
Be dancing around throughout the battle.
Absolutely.
Not paying any attention at all to.
Can I make that as a long-standing prediction?
What?
Can I make a long-standing prediction that the next battle that Merry and Pippin are privy to, they're just gonna be like eating in the background? They're just gonna be like kind of they're like witnessing the battle and kind of just like eating a snack while they're like watching it go down. Can I make that a long-standing prediction?
Sure.
Cool.
Okay. Right. I think that's
it, yeah.
Does it. I've been Robert.
And I've been Evelyn.
And this is Talking About It. Thank you so much for listening. I have been Robert.
And I have been Evelyn.
Podcasters are Robert and Evelyn Lewis.
Edited by Evelyn Lewis.
Produced by Robert Lewis, Evelyn Lewis,
Nikita,
Regina, and Comic Canary.
Music provided by Ben Sound. Link in the description.
Support us on Patreon at Talking About It Podcast.
Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Talking About It.
And Twitter at TokenPod.
Thank you all again for listening, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.